For a movie review, 1958, The Young Lions, directed by Edric Dietrich. It's based on a novel written in 1949 of the same name by Irwin Shaw. And let's look at the cast, shall we? In the lead roles, there are three lead roles in this. Marlon Brando plays Christian der Still. He's in the German army. Montgomery Clift plays Noah Ackerman, a young Jew who signs up. Well, actually, he gets called up. Dean Martin, Michael Whiteacre, a famous celebrity who also gets called up. Barbara Rush plays Margaret, who has an affectionate interest with all of those men. With Christian and Michael. Hope Lange plays Hope. She's Noah's romantic interest. May Britt is Gretchen Hardenberg, and Maximilian Schell plays Captain Hardenberg, a captain in the German army. And so, predictably, we've got a war drama, and Brando is an officer. Cliff, as I say, he's about to be drafted. And Martin is a character, Whiteacre, is also about to join up. But he manages to wheedle his way into the army who were reserved for the home guard at the time, which this is quite significant. Get to a bit of a plot on this. We arrive at the film in Bavaria, 1938, and Barbara Rush, played by Margaret, is at a New Year's Eve party, and there she meets, she is there with Christian, played by Brando, and they're obviously a couple as such. There's a strong romantic element to this beginning. He's a sort of a ski instructor in the Bavarian Alps, and he's also now become part of the German army, and this is sort of before World War II breaks out, and we witness how the Germans use the New Year to exert their nationalistic fervour for the National Socialist Party with the thumping of the chest, and it's quite startling, really, and it has quite an impact on Barbara Rush's character Margaret. The patriotic singing, their support for Hitler, and it's really a disturbing picture of nationalistic fervour. As a result of this atmosphere, this fervent Nazi-inspired atmosphere, Margaret makes an excuse to leave, to Christian's surprise, and we are then jettisoned across the Atlantic, where we find Whiteacre, and lo and behold, Margaret's there with him, and they appear to have developed a romantic link. And this, of course, is the tenuous link between the two men. And we then get the plot unfolding as we find out about the three young men, the title of this movie, The Young Lions, and their involvement in World War II on opposite sides, and how they handle the particular challenges and events while serving their respective countries. And the action shifts from Germany through Africa, highlighting Christian, and twists back to the US, to being called up, and then latterly to the Allies going to Normandy in their quest to drive back the German army at the tail end of World War II. And that, of course, covers Noah Whiteacre. Direction is relatively easy to follow. It appears the events are probably occurring at about the same time. And so we follow Christian in occupied France, we meet his commanding officer, played by Maximilian Schell, Captain Hardenberg, and he's a ruthless operator. He doesn't tolerate any dissent. He wants 100% commitment to the Nazi cause. And although Christian is a man who responds to duty and shows commitment to the cause, his ideology is not in line really with National Socialism, and certainly not in the same ballpark as the captain that he has to work for. Contrastingly, we then head to America. We see Noah. He's a Jew and he works in a department store before he gets called up. He then meets Whiteacre. They're billeted together, and Whiteacre starts to notice a number of the company in the dorm are showing rather anti-Semitic prejudices towards Noah, and there's a very, very young Lee Van Cleef in there, and he's a tough guy with anti-Semitic views, no physical weaknesses, of course, and he has it in for Noah. Noah's wages are stolen, and Noah points the finger at Clift and his buddies, and this leads to a boxing fist-to-fist fight on consecutive nights, which Noah instigates to try and hold on to his honour. Of course, he gets a right pummeling from Van Cleef's buddies, who are equally nasty, but amazingly succeeds in the third event against Van Cleef, and so restores his own feeling of self-worth. Hierarchy just sees the whole incident as a bit of a bad apple in the box of apples, but the viewer will see how high moral standing in the US Army is not exactly extended to Jews. The reality was that bullying very much a part of life at that time, and the Jews certainly were on the receiving end, as were other ethnic groups. And it gives you a sort of a flavour of how these groups were viewed by Whitey. It does in fact bring Michael and Noah closer together, and Michael's very sympathetic to Noah's plight, and their relationship develops. Whiteacre at this stage is a sort of minor character, but famous he is, and it enables him to delay his overseas visit, being placed in a comfortable job on the home front with no combat. The movie, as I say, gives an insight as to how these three men relate to women. We see Christian, although he's wearing a German uniform, he's very conducive to making relationships who are not women who are not pure German. Strikes up a strong friendship with a young French woman in occupied France. He's socially skilled. He relates well, even though the girl dishes out her hatred towards the Germans on a regular basis. But he manages to turn her around with his gentle demeanour, and an affection develops. Going one further though, a little bit later in the movie, Schell orders Christian to deliver a message to his wife back in Berlin, and Christian returns there, and we witness a very alluring scene where between Christian and the captain's wife. She is a woman very attractive, promiscuous, and frivolity, and then a mutually satisfying seduction takes place between Christian and the captain's wife. And we return to this scene much later in the movie when Schell is dying and on his deathbed, and he instructs Christian to return to see his wife as the Germany is facing inevitable defeat, and he wants to sort of, I suppose, mend some of the bad feeling with his wife before he passes on. And Christian's attempts to replicate the previous visit and gets very much repelled by her, and she has moved on considerably and is really completely lacking in any emotion towards her husband's committed suicide, which takes place just before he goes to Berlin. We also see Noah meeting a young girl called Hope. They fall in love, but Noah's got to get past the father, who's not that partial to Jews, it has to be said, but he eventually wins the father over and a marriage follows. And then he's sent to battle-torn North Africa and Europe. We witness harrowing scenes on the front line. Sorry, he gets sent to Europe, not North Africa. We witness harrowing scenes in North Africa. Christian's unit overcome Allied forces. Those forces suffer hideous injuries, and Hardenberg orders Christian to shoot a man who strays into their camp, and he's suffering from shell shock and delirious. But Christian is unable to fulfill and carry out the order, and Hardenberg's efforts to try and get him into line fail, and he eventually has to shoot the man himself as his fanaticism for Hitler's murderous thirst for power goes on. And we then move a bit further into the movie where Germany are now retreating. The American army are in Europe, and we get to meet Noah and Whiteacre, who's joined Noah at the front after a period of relative comfort in America. And Whiteacre, they're in part of the Normandy invasion into France, and we are aware that Whiteacre has now overcome his cowardice, which is the reason why he hadn't come before, and a scene plays out where they're both crossing a river to escape a position that's bombarded by the enemy, and it's an extremely traumatic scene. And they then come across a gunman, German, retreating from what they aren't sure of, but they find is a nearby concentration camp. The American army then continue and arrive at the camp, and we get the stunningly visual images of the survivors, the harrowing impact on both Noah and Michael and all American troops. And we witness a clergyman carrying out a service in remembrance of the dead. There are bodies stacked high, and the number of gassed people in the camp is innumerable. And the performances of the two is quite shaking as you view it. And we then move towards the conclusion, but I'm not going to describe that. You need to get to see this movie. It's an amazing movie, a movie that I really hadn't seen up until a few years ago. The performances by the three leads are extraordinary, particularly Brando, and it's a film that stands up well over time. It's of course a historical record of the Second World War, pretty factually accurate, thoroughly recommended. It's called The Young Lions, released in 1958, and please get to see it. It's a perfect piece of cinematography and a great film.